It's always cool to see a player slowly change their game and their playstyle over time, whether it's to adapt to the ever-evolving NBA landscape or because they want to play a different role on a new team. A few years ago, I actually made a video about some NBA players who drastically changed their playstyle over the course of their careers. In that video, I talked about Chris Paul, Ricky Rubio, Blake Griffin, Eric Gordon, Giannis, Marvin Williams, and Brook Lopez. That was a solid list, but today, let's take a look at some more players. How did they change their playstyle and why did they change it? In this video, I'm gonna talk about a mix of current and past players who I think fit the concept of this video quite well. So without further ado, let's begin. Steven Adams. We see so many big men develop a three-point shot as their careers progress, but very rarely do we see a big man develop into a competent playmaker and passer. They usually come in as being one, or they don't. Back in his early days in OKC, his role was to be a rim protector, an anchor on defense who took over Kendrick Perkins' role as a tough, strong presence in the paint. Occasionally, he'd also be the pick-and-roll finisher to complement the offense, but he was never designated to run any plays by himself. That started to change over the years. By the time he got to Memphis, Adams has become a huge part of their offensive sets, consistently passing out of the high post, doing drop-offs, kickouts, screen assists. His court vision has always been there before, but he didn't have the opportunity to show it, since, Westbrook and Durant, they got all the touches. Now, his playstyle is reminiscent of Marc Gasol's. The Grizzlies are putting him in the same spots where Gasol used to be. As a result, his assist numbers jumped up significantly, now top 5 among all centers in assists per game. That's incredible for a guy who plays just 26 minutes a night. Plus, his assist percentage is fantastic for a big man. When Adams is on the court, about 16% of all field goals his teammates make are assisted by him. Coupled with his strong screens, something he's always been good at, Adams is third in the entire league in screen assists per game, behind Rudy Gobert and Jakob Poeltl. So he's assisting his teammates in more ways than just passing. Adams' new role on offense has been critical to the Grizzlies' success, and he's been overshadowed by the younger, flashier guards. But make no mistake, he's arguably the team's second most important player. Over the summer, the Grizzlies wanted and needed him to have a bigger role on offense, and Adams responded. Boris Diaw. When I think of Boris Diaw, the first thing that comes to mind is this. David Griffin, a former front office executive on the Suns, described what it was like seeing Boris at a pre-draft workout. Boris walks into the gym one day wearing flip-flops and holding his customary cappuccino, which was a staple for him every morning. It was during pre-draft workouts, so he sees the Vertec machine and asks what it is. We tell him it measures your vertical leap by determining how many of the bars you can touch. He asks, what's the highest anyone has ever gone? And we tell him Amari Stoudemire cleared the entire rack. So Boris puts down the cappuccino, takes off his flip-flops, and clears the entire rack on the first try. Then he calmly puts his flip-flops back on, picks up his cappuccino, and walks away, saying, that was not difficult. The thing is, for most of his career, he wasn't seen as being very athletic. In fact, he was the complete opposite. He looked overweight at times and moved very slow, but he was praised for his basketball IQ. That wasn't the case when he first came into the NBA though. He was supposed to be a hyper-athletic point guard. Many scouts refer to him as the French Magic Johnson, a 6'8" point guard who could do it all. For his first 2 seasons in Atlanta, he played mostly either point guard or shooting guard, but struggled to find his niche. It wasn't until he arrived in Phoenix where Coach D'Antoni slotted him into power forward, in place of Stoudemire, who was injured the entire season. That's when he became the Boris Diaw we all know and love. When he became a full-time power forward, he started to bulk up as well, maybe a bit too much. The transition was quite drastic. We've never seen a player with such a stark difference in their pre-draft expectations as we did with Diaw. Kevin Love. The thing that stands out most with Kevin Love is where he takes his shots. Early in his career with the Timberwolves, roughly 50% of his field goal attempts came within 10 feet of the rim. That dropped to just 20% on the Cavs. While he's always been a good three-point shooter, it wasn't until he got to Cleveland where he started taking the bulk of his shots from beyond the arc. I guess, that makes sense. That's what happens when you play with two ball-dominant perimeter guys. Being a stretch four is more valuable than being a post-up player, so Love adapted his game to their playstyle. It might also have something to do with the fact that he lost a substantial amount of weight. We've joked about Fat Kevin Love in the past, but the truth is, Fat Kevin Love was a dominant post player. When he lost that weight, he lost strength as well. It seemed like he couldn't take advantage of smaller guys like he used to. Even after LeBron left, Love's post-up ability hasn't come back. Chris Bosh. Also similar to Kevin Love in the sense that he had to adapt his playstyle to play alongside LeBron and D-Wade. But with Bosh, he also found a new strength in his defense. Prior to joining the Miami Heat, Bosh used to play closer to the rim, but I'd say the biggest change is his transformation on defense. He was the perfect guy for the Heat's blitzing defensive rotations. Long, lanky, great lateral quickness. Whenever he switched onto a smaller guy, he kept up with him. His mobility and length allowed him to disrupt passing lanes and challenge anybody who tries to shoot in his face. The thing is, in Toronto, Bosh was never really known for his defense, so him all of a sudden becoming a major cog in a top 5 to top 10 defense in the league, that's a huge shift from what we thought he was capable of. Initially, when this big three formed, Bosh was always on the outside looking in. He never felt like he was part of the group, and when the Heat played poorly, he was always the first guy to blame. Over time though, by 2013 and 2014, he became way more important than D-Wade. That was quite clear when LeBron left, cause even though Wade has been in Miami for his entire career, it was Bosh who got offered a massive contract. Oh, they knew he was way more valuable. Heck, he even developed a three-point shot in his final few seasons in the league. Sadly, as y'all know, his career ended prematurely because of blood clots. But Bosh is certainly one of the most underappreciated players in history. He's never complained a single time about his role, despite being forced to change to accommodate his teammates. Kevin Durant. This might come as a surprise to you, but KD has definitely changed the way he scores throughout his career. You may not realize it because, he's always been a lethal scorer. He gets points no matter the situation. However, the change comes with how he scores. Remember back in the day when Durant really struggled with smaller defenders? Guys like Tony Allen and Chris Paul used to give him a lot of trouble. Durant was so skinny and weak back then that he could not take advantage of them in the post. Plus, with their quick hands, it was a nightmare for him to go against. Now, Durant did not have many weaknesses on offense, but this was one of them, and he sought to rectify that. Over the years, Durant slowly and quietly developed into one of the league's most deadly post-up scorers. Statistically on the Nets, he's been in the 90th percentile in post-up efficiency, even higher than guys like Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. Back in the day, he was primarily scoring off the dribble, crossovers, pull-ups. He played essentially like a tall shooting guard. Honestly, he still plays like that today. As he got older, he refined his post-up game in an effort to get easier buckets. The dude is almost 7 feet tall, while most of his defenders are like 4 or 5 inches shorter than him, so it makes sense why he's so efficient. He could just turn around and shoot over them. To add on to that, Durant on the Nets has taken the fewest number of attempts at the rim than he's ever had before, partly due to age, as he's not as explosive as he used to be, so he has to rely more on his jumper. It's insane how good he is at scoring, cause no matter which option he chooses, it always works. Harrison Barnes. So we all know Barnes spent his first few years on the Warriors. At that time, he was a very important piece to their championship runs, but he was also the least important piece in their starting lineup. Barnes was mainly either a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, or occasionally he'd go ISO and post up, which was basically the last resort on offense. The thing is, his role and his playstyle has drastically changed multiple times since then. When he joined the Dallas Mavericks, Barnes all of a sudden became the team's primary scorer. He spent a few years there just jacking up shots. Barnes would occasionally go off, but most of the time, he was just an average scorer on a losing team that missed the playoffs. Later on the Sacramento Kings, Barnes slowly transformed his playstyle once again. As the Kings moved towards a new approach on efficiency and analytics, Barnes also adapted. Over the summer, his #1 priority was to work on his foul drawing prowess, as that's been a major flaw in his scoring potential since he came into the league. On the Kings, most of his shots either come from the three-point line or at the basket, the most efficient choices. He's also a big dude, so he can take advantage of smaller guys and draw fouls, now shooting the most free throws per game of his career. Not only that, but also the highest true shooting percentage of his career at an astounding 64%, nearly 8% higher than his career average. That efficiency is even better than Giannis and Kevin Durant's. The dude went from a mid-range player in Dallas to a hyper-efficient Murray ball player in Sacramento. It's a shame because Barnes' best years are withering away in Sacramento. He hasn't made the playoffs since his days on the Warriors. Dejounte Murray. Did anyone really expect Murray to be second in the league in triple-doubles, behind Jokic? I sure as hell did not. In previous years, he was always known for his defense. Under Coach Pop, he flourished under his defensive schemes. At the age of 21, he made all-defense second team back in 2018. The flashes of his offensive potential were there, but there were questions if he could actually be the future point guard of the Spurs. Nobody thought he could become such a well-rounded point guard so quickly, especially after that horrible ACL injury. Dejounte's transformation from a promising defender to a triple-double machine, the first option on the team, that's unheard of, and he's doing this with no secondary star by his side. This was the year he proved he's a competent playmaker and passer, which was questionable in the years prior. There are things he still needs to work on to become a complete player, but there are no doubts he's going to stay in San Antonio for the long haul. He's a Popovich kind of guy. Anyway, that's all folks. Those were 7 more players who transformed their playstyles. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Which other players do you think belong on this list? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.